Welcome to another episode of Mortgage Masterminds. I'm Richard Greaser, VP of Marketing at Sales Boomerang, and my guest is AJ Franchi, President at Gold Star Mortgage. Did I pronounce the last name right?
Close. It's Franchi.
Look at me.
Yeah.
Look at me.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. Well, look, I'll give a quick preamble about Sales Boomerang in case you don't know who we are or you've been living under a rock since like 2017. Sales Boomerang notifies a lender the moment one of their borrowers needs a loan. One and two of the biggest lending companies in the U.S. use Sales Boomerang to make sure they know when their borrowers need a loan before their borrower even does. So if you want to learn more about salesboomerang.com, go to Sales Boomerang, reach out. We'd love to have a strategy call, learn more about your business. Let's get started. AJ, why don't we kick it off? First of all, thanks for coming on board the podcast. Really happy to have you here. From our conversation was pretty awesome. I think a lot of folks are going to get a lot out of this. Why don't we just kick it off? Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you came to be here at Gold Star and how things are going at Gold Star?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at Gold Star 14 years. So I started right out of college in 2008. I was an intern here, started out at Michigan State University and, worked my way up, through the organization, first in origination. I was a loan coordinator and a sales assistant, worked through the first refinance boom of my career in 2000 the end of 2008 and into 2009, really through 2012. And at the time, we were growing from a small hybrid broker banker into a full independent mortgage bank. And one of the things that we realized had to happen very quickly was we needed a central system of control. And in order to be able to expand and open branches, in different markets like we do now. And so, Encompass became our origination system and it became my project, and it positioned me organizationally to be on the front line with each one of these other departments that we're forming, right? As you become an independent mortgage bank, you get your Title II full Eagle from FHA. So I was working with the FHA underwriters that we had hired to configure the system for them and kind of cut my teeth along that trajectory. Same thing with secondary. That's how I learned the secondary marketing aspect of the business and pricing aspect of the business was because, we got our first pricing engine. That was my project. I had to work with the secondary team to develop that project. That was in 2011, probably, right? So
who was that? What pricing engine was that?
It's Optimal Blue.
We're
on Optimal Blue. Yeah, we're on Optimal Blue. We've actually been back and forth. So we were on Optimal Blue, then we moved to EPPS, and then we actually just recently moved back to Optimal Blue, just about a year ago now. So, but learned the business kind of on the front line of each department because I was configuring alongside the departments as they were either being created or growing or changing, as the business was changing. And did that all the way up until about 2017. I was the CIO until that point. And then in 2017, I took over as president and chief operating officer, and then have been in that role since. So about 5 years in my current role, and focused on growth, focused on expansion, focused on efficiency, cost of origination, but everything that we do here really has a technology skew. Because that was my background. That's how I knew how to solve problems. That's what I really focused on. And, that's kind of been ingrained into our culture because, it's a tone at the top, right? That's what I know, right? That's what I do. So.
Well, I'll say that I meet a lot of different folks on this podcast, right? And in life in general. And you're one of those folks that you immediately realize is super high, very competent, high achiever, you can just tell by talking to you, very smart person. So it's pretty obvious why you went from, you just basically went straight to president over your career there. I think sure people in the organization, probably recognize the value, right? So, so kudos to you for that. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your breakdown of the business between purchase and refi over like during the pandemic and then now? And kind of how is that business going right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So pre-pandemic, we've been a purchase focused lender. We really made that shift after the last refi boom at the end of 2012 because going into that, I think we were very leads focused. We were doing purchase business, but we were very focused on refinance, doing a lot of it. And obviously coming out of 2012, and I would say specifically the end of 13. It created, and we took a huge step back in our business, having to kind of refocus. So we learned that lesson in the last one and didn't go into this one in that same position. And so, pre-pandemic, we were about 70 to 75% purchase business. We still did refis. We do a good job of actively mining our database, staying in touch with customers. We don't have a call center here, but we do provide a lot of support and tools to our originators on the street and in the branches to be able to realize opportunities from their database. But about 70% purchase going into the pandemic. Then obviously during the pandemic, our refinance business took off. At our peak of refinance business, we were about 52-48 refi versus purchase. So still 52% purchase, slightly skewed towards purchase because that's really what we're built for. The refinance business that we're doing largely is driven from our past customer database, right? We're not really actively buying leads or soliciting refis. They're coming from, I would say somewhat proactive, but also just good stay in touch activities that we do with our current database where there's a ton of opportunity. And even during that period, though, if you just looked at our purchase business year over year, it's grown from 19 to 20, 21, and now going into 22 at about a 10%, increase annually each year, just for the purchase business. Obviously, the refinance business is down for us, like everybody this year, substantially. But, we were well positioned coming into this market. We've always been pretty lean and mean. We're not a huge company. And so, the benefits that come with that is, you can pivot quickly. We didn't have to scale up substantially during the pandemic with just rapid hire, because we've always operated an internal development program here where we're building similar to what I went through, honestly, in my career. We're building our next generation of ops people because one of the things that we believe very strongly is, you can go out and you can hire all kinds of people that with a lot of technical proficiency, underwriters, closers, et cetera, that know how to do the job, right? The problem is do they know how to do the job here, right? Everybody's system is different. Everybody's workflow is different. And most importantly, everybody's culture and cultural expectation is different, right? And that's what we've seen in the past, trying to, blanket hire from the outside to rampantly ramp up. You lose a lot in terms of consistency to your sales staff, consistency to your customer in terms of experience, because, you can teach anybody, this job. It's not that hard, right? With a structured training program and a little bit of ability, a little bit of investment into that. Anybody that has a good attitude and good aptitude, you can teach them how to do the job. What you can't teach is attitude, right? You cannot coach attitude, and you can't. It's really, really hard, and it takes a really long time to teach culture, and it's very difficult to break people of bad habits that they've maybe developed, or I shouldn't even say bad, but different habits or different culture, that they've had over a long career at different places. And so what we've found is, we're better off investing upfront to identify high performing individuals, right, that have a great attitude that we can instill our culture into, and then we will teach them how to do whatever job they're going to need to do. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing for our sales staff and for our customers is that consistent experience. And that consistent experience is really driven by expectation and what your culture is. And so my point is even going to the outside and trying to have to hire, you're spending just as much time trying to teach them your culture, or you end up with this rotating door because they just don't fit you culturally, right? And so going into the pandemic, we had already had our bench of individuals. We were already positioned to work from home because we're in Michigan and we get snow here, right? You have snow days. Either your kids have snow days or people do. So, we already had to be able to flex into that, right? So there wasn't some huge lift, for us to shift everybody home. It was just kind of like, all right, snow day for 2 years. And that's what it was.
That's a great, I love that. That's so funny.
There was some downfalls of that long of a period of time that, we're starting to we've been bringing people back to the office. We're not by any means like work from home all the time anymore, but we went into the pandemic well positioned. We were able to control our turn time just with this, the scale that we were able to achieve. We're very technologically driven, so there's a lot of technology. And our technology, honestly, we focused a lot on the manufacturing process, right? The technology that's cool and sexy and that everybody has paid attention to from, for the last 5 years, is that front end technology, point of sale, consumer experience, lead generation, that kind of stuff. And that's all very important, right? We went a different direction and really focused on loan manufacturing to try to achieve that efficiency at a smaller scale, right? Because the problem is if you want to compete as a mid-sized lender, you have to be that much more efficient, right? Because you don't have as much scale as a large lender might have. Now you do have some advantage in terms of being able to pivot more quickly. You can do things like an internal development program because when I scale up, I might need 2 new people, not 40, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to do that developmentally internally. But we had good years just like everybody else did. I think our biggest win though coming out of that was that coming out of the pandemic, we didn't have to downshift as hard as maybe some other companies have had to do. That was deliberate and on purpose because we did have to do it in 2013. And what I saw then, and the mistake that I didn't want to make again, was the disruption that it really brings within your organization having to downshift that hard and that quick. It's culturally decimating, and you're seeing it now. You're seeing a lot of movement. You're seeing a lot of movement within the business of originators, right? Because there's just so much chaos inside whatever company they're at. And we positioned ourselves to be able to take advantage of that, and we've brought on, just in the first quarter, we brought on 12 branches, which for some companies maybe that's not a lot. For us, that's a lot, right? And but we've been able to do it because the excess capacity that we built up, we were able to keep because it wasn't so much that we couldn't carry it. We were able to, and that allowed us to bring more in. We're in a structure where we continue to scale with the development program, and there's just a ton of opportunity because these people are just falling off of wherever they were because that downshift is just so painful, right? Or their companies didn't maybe execute during the pandemic, turn times. I heard stories of, and when I say I heard stories of people that came here for this reason, underwriting turn times 30, 35 business days, right? We never got past 5. And, that
Wow.
was an advantage. That was an advantage of size, though, I think, because I'll be the first to tell you, it's a lot easier to go from, 1.5 billion to 3 billion than it is to go from 20 billion to 40 billion. That's just a totally different growth trajectory, right? And so, you take advantage of that where you can. And, I think it's left us in a very good position now going into a more difficult market because we are relatively lean. The break even's not very high, right? And so you can continue to grab new business and reinvest in the business and reap some of the benefits of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think from some of the other lenders I've talked to, it sounds like a lot of folks just acquire as many branches as they possibly can without actually
Yeah,
having the infrastructure in place, and they're paying the price for it, right?
yeah. Well,
Um,
and the people that work there pay price for it too, right? I mean, I call that, and that's something that we are very conscious of not doing here. Is I will never grow on the backs of the people that I have, right? Leverage the current network to finance the growth in the new network. It's not a long-term scalable model. It's why you see different lenders be the largest lender every couple of years, and you just keep shifting because I just don't believe in that model for the long term. I think if your goals are short term, it can work, right? But that leverage model long term, I think, is just it's flawed, right? It just it inevitably always leads to the same place.
yeah, for sure. Well, man, if everybody's listening here, there's some gems here. AJ's got 10% consistent year over year growth, about 80% purchase. So the organization didn't have to face the same kind of issues that a lot of other companies are facing that were super focused on refi over the last couple of years. And I think it sounds to me like a fantastic place to be, right? Because you prioritize culture fit over, for example, experience. Like someone's got 30 years of experience, but it's doing something different than the way you guys do it, particularly, and they
Yeah,
can't be trained.
yeah,
So that's fantastic. A lot of gold there. Well, so besides you, we talked about mining your database, and it sounds like you guys have a strategy dialed in. That's our
hmm
wheelhouse at my company, Sales Boomerang. And
yeah,
I understand you guys use someone else. That's totally fine. But what I love to hear is that you're doing it and that you see it
yeah.
and you recognize the value of it because that's fantastic. I just have a question on that. Do you have a specific, like, operationally, do you say, okay, these loan officers, right? Or these account executives are going to focus on the retention piece and mining their own database versus everybody just kind of, as soon as you get a notification that someone could benefit, let's say from a refinance, everybody just kind of picks up the phone, whoever's tied to that borrower. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. So I would say two things have been key. Two things have been key around the database mining portion. The first part is, you have to, or at least we believe organizationally, you have to automate as much of that process as you can for the loan officers, because the vast majority of them are just not going to do it. They're not going to upload their database. They're not going to keep whatever tool that they have available up to date. It's not in their wheelhouse, and honestly, it's not the best use of their time. So I don't even necessarily blame them for that. So we spent first to really make that a successful endeavor for us. We spent a lot of time automating that data delivery, both to the monitoring system and then back from the monitoring system. We believe very much that customer relationship really lives and starts with the loan officer. And so to answer your question, those go back to the original relationship owner, right? Meaning the loan officer, right? So, we're not pushing those into a separate pool and then having somebody else work them and hit them separately, right? We're pushing all that data back to the original loan officer, and it effectively creates warm leads for them, right? That they can re-engage that customer. And we couple that with some very effective stuff, to help with post-closing engagement as well. So if you think about, what your customer life cycle looks like, so you have a brand new customer, they have a great experience, they close, right? They're immediately going into some automated post-close campaigns, which is, pretty out of the box stuff that you've probably seen with, any CRM out there, right? So just some generic information. But then on top of that, they're going into HomeBot to get their monthly home digest. And, that has for us a 93% engagement rate with customers. That's just been phenomenal for us in terms of performance. And so, now they're engaged with that loan officer every month. And then one of the pieces that we're about to add is Mortgage Coach that will do. Oh, sorry.
No, I always wanted everybody listening to hear that stat. I love Mortgage Coach, but that HomeBot stat, 93%. I don't
Yeah.
think there's almost any technology consumer facing out there that has that. I've never heard of that kind of stat. Think about what that means. That means they're getting on the app and actively using it to look at their home. And every single time that happens, AJ's team is learning about that. That's amazing.
Yeah. And something about it, every customer wants to know what their home value is. And I think especially in markets like this, it's even more pertinent because people are paying over ask and they want to feel good about that decision, right? Which is where it really falls in. But for us, what we really care about is just that continued consumer engagement and continuing to stay in front of that customer. And so we put them into HomeBot. They get their monthly digest conversion, and I would say engagement in that has been phenomenal. And whether that means a refinance, because obviously, there's not a lot of refi opportunity right now, but you also have to think about it from the perspective of referrals, right? If you're in front of that customer every month, maybe they tell somebody else about you. Maybe they show them the home digest and they want it too. And, that's how you can start to build a database. And then we're through Mortgage Coach now we're doing effectively annual mortgage reviews, but a more detailed annual mortgage review. So just looking for more specific data to a customer to help with that post-close engagement instead of what really exists in a lot of places, which is just generic messages that people, maybe they look at the first one and then they just kind of blow by it because there just isn't any pertinent information. You couple that then with that monitoring, those monitoring solutions, you're really holding that entire customer relationship tight, right? And now when that effectively warm lead comes up from the monitoring system, they've also seen you every single month, right? So hopefully they just called you and it never gets to the monitoring, but if somebody gets there before you do, then you have an opportunity to go get it back, right? Or you have an opportunity to be first to the customer, which is really, really important, right? And so you have to kind of put the two together to be really effective. We didn't do that all at once. The reason I say you have to is because I've seen it, right? We did the monitoring first. It worked well. We introduced some of these, more data-driven, specified post-close tools for the customer. You put the two together, it's very, very, very effective. And, again, we're positioning right now to what do we need to do for the next refi boom? Because it's coming, right? Everybody tells me I've been in this business 14 years, which is, long for some, for others, I'm a baby. I'm probably in that middle ground now in terms of seniority. But, I've heard every refi boom, oh, this will never happen again. This is the greatest. It'll never happen again. It always happens again. It happens every 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Seen it 3 times in my career. Obviously 20 and 21 was maybe a little bit exaggerated or maybe a little bit better, but it doesn't mean that the sky is falling or that, we're not going to get into another refi cycle, because we will.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely love that you're using Mortgage Coach. Mortgage Coach is fantastic. We're very, very close, obviously, with Mortgage Coach.
Yeah.
And it just makes the conversation with the borrower and the clarity it provides for the borrower, right? Because honestly, it is complicated for someone who doesn't do this for a living, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an analogy. I'm actually buying the house I'm in right now. I'm renting it, right? And I'm buying it.
Mm-hmm.
I've bought and sold a couple places, and now I can get it from the owner. I close on Monday, and I can tell you in the last, let's say, 2-3 months since it's happened, everyone along the way, like the realtor I was working with, everyone along the way has been encouraging me to shop my lender.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone along the way, every single person, the title company, the settlement, the realtor,
Yeah.
everybody is encouraging this. You know
Yeah.
what insulates your business from it? It is things like Mortgage Coach, where suddenly the borrower feels like, wow, this person's showing me exactly where I stand. It's not just like a fee sheet being thrown in front of me, right? That I don't understand. So,
Well,
go
and
ahead.
I think to build on that, and why we're very bullish on systems like that, is because, um, you know, people in general, right, make decisions based on emotion, and then they take that emotion and they try to validate it with data after, right, or they take that decision and try to validate it with data after, and so, it's whether they understand the whole TCA or maybe it's an over communication of information. If you, what it does very effectively, it makes them feel like you are, as a loan officer, you're very credible. You're looking out for their best interest, right? You're more of an advisor than just a cheap salesman, right?
Yep.
And they'll make a decision based on that emotion, right? And so I think that's why something like that is so important. It's to really create and solidify, part of that, customer experience and really getting them engaged with you.
Absolutely. So I think this is a good one to kind of wrap up on. I'll just tell me a little bit about your philosophy of being a pro versus a rate slinger, because this is from you. This is not me.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I love it. And it's right in line with Mortgage Coach. It's right in line with what we're talking about being an advisor. So why don't you tell
Yeah.
everybody a little
So
bit more about that?
Yeah, so I mean, well, and it's most pertinent in this market because these are markets where professionals win, right? When the market gets tough, and I would just liken it to real estate as an example. We're in Michigan, and I was just in Lansing, Michigan, about a week ago, meeting with one of our referral partners there, and one of the things that he told me about the market was that there is 300 active listings on the market right now in the Lansing MSA. There's 1,200 registered real estate agents in that market,
Uh-oh.
and 30 of those 300 listings are with one agent. The top agent in the market has 30 of the 300 listings, so about 10% of the market. So
Good Lord.
it gives you an idea of what's going on in the rest of the market, right? And or for the rest of the agents there. But again, I think it tells a story as well, and you can liken it to the mortgage business also, where when you get into these tight markets like this, professionals really win, and you have to position yourself with credibility and as an advisor, and really building those relationships with customers as opposed to just be slinging rates like a lot of people did for the last 2 years. There's a lot of new people in the business, and some of them will build great careers, and a lot of them are going to fall out because all that they know how to do is take orders, sling rate on to next. And the problem is when you're in this challenging of a market, and especially if you think about a purchase, right, and what it takes to buy a house right now, why are the top agents, why are they outpacing the rest of the market uh, in terms of in terms of total transactions, the top realtors, right? It's because the market is so tough. And if you're a customer that needs a house and has been looking for a house for the last 6 months, and you hear repeatedly how hard this market is, how hard. where are you going to go? Are you going to go to the person that started in the business a year ago that maybe does a couple transactions a year and, let's be real, probably doesn't know how to even get your offer accepted, right? Or are you going to go to a pro that has a proven track record in the market, that knows, that knows the market, knows what they're doing, and honestly just probably has a higher likelihood of getting your offer accepted. That's what's going on in real estate. That I'm seeing that everywhere. Now you liken that to mortgage, it's the same thing, right? If you're trying to buy a house, right, and you're so emotionally charged because you've been looking for so long, right? What do you really care about if you're a customer? You might, you probably do care about the rate. Sure, everybody cares about the rate. It needs to be, it needs to be in market. You have to be competitive all day long. But do you want to work with a professional that is going to get this loan done, that, on this house that you just spent a year and countless nights losing sleep, even getting this offer accepted, right? Or are you going to go to somebody that's just slinging rates? And, as a loan originator, how do you make them feel, right? You have to make them feel like you know what you're doing. Whether you've been in the business for a year or 5 years, it isn't even about experience. It's about, your sales technique, your sales presentation, how you engage and talk to that customer. And, it's easier now than ever to even get them over that rate hurdle, because they've spent so much time and they've got so much invested in this house search, right? That it's not about that. It's not about the rate. It's about, I'm going to get you into this house, right?
Oh, for sure.
And you can use tools and technology and all kinds of things to convey that message. But that's what I think is even more important now, right? And it's aligned with what's happening in real estate, which is the most interesting part. And I think that the top teams, what do they know? They know the same thing. Like, you should shop your lender. I'm not saying only work with one. Look at a couple, but you need to work with somebody reputable, because God forbid, you just spent and beat out 30 other offers only to have a problem with your mortgage and not be able to buy that house, right? And so, and especially in a market like this too, where, rates are moving substantially. Like, is your lender as a customer proactively following up with you, one, to educate you on it, and two, make sure you still qualify, right? If you got pre-qualified in December at 3% and now your rate's 5.5%, right? Your payment's a lot different. Your qualification metrics are a lot different. God forbid you waste another 6 months looking for a house only to find out that you couldn't even buy the one you were looking for, right? So, I think, again, there's rate slingers. There's people that just, in this business, there always have been and there always will be, that just take calls. Here's the rate, move on, right? And then I think there's professionals, right? People that manage pipelines, manage that customer relationship. And, again, what's the difference between purchase and refi? Refi, you're slinging a rate. Here's a payment. Here's a great customer experience. Move on. Purchase, you're helping somebody buy a house, and there's a lot that goes into that past your interest rate. And so, I think this is a market where professionals win. And if you position yourself as a professional, there's a lot of opportunity. And that's why we're so excited about this market, is because that's really all we have here, right? That's what we focus on. That is our cultural fit. And, there'll be a lot of opportunity going forward.
Fantastic, AJ. Well, everybody, that's the title of this podcast. Be a pro, don't be a rate slinger. Especially if you want to succeed in this market. AJ, if people want to reach out to you, I know I hit you up on LinkedIn. We got to know each other. Is that cool? Is that a good way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is good. You can email me. My email is just aj@goldstarfinancial.com. Either's fine.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining me today, AJ. I appreciate it. This was an awesome discussion.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, please give us a 5-star rating, subscribe, and tell all your friends about the show. We at Sales Boomerang started this podcast to elevate the mortgage lending industry by sharing the kind of exclusive, insider knowledge from the successes and failures of the best of the best. The foundation of every successful lender is borrower retention. Sales Boomerang is the #1 fully automated borrower retention system in the industry. 1 in 2 of the biggest lending companies in the United States use Sales Boomerang to make sure they reach out to their borrowers when they need a loan, and more importantly, before their competitors do. If you want to learn more about Sales Boomerang, check us out at salesboomerang.com.